In this video, we were talking about that turbocharge, that $60 billion investment that Bob Iger keeps talking about at these quarterly earnings calls. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about fan expectations going into this thing because there's a lot going on with this whole conversation about turbocharge, good, bad, ugly, all that. We're going to break it down up next on OG55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG55. I am joined once again by Citrus George, the Italiano. Before we get started, George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also now find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yes, absolutely. You are officially in the house, Italiano. So let's dive into this. Okay, so this has caused quite a stir, right? We had the quarterly earnings call yesterday, which actually was a pretty good call. I mean, they've really improved their financials. You know, they brought that streaming debt down from last year. That streaming debt was like $1 billion plus. It's down to just now under 400 million. They're doing pretty solid. We're starting to see progress, right? But one thing that really stuck out in that quarterly earnings call was Iger saying that they're going to turbocharge the parks investment over the next 10 years. He's referring to that $60 billion, right? So we're going to talk about this because there's a lot of discussion as to a lot of negativity around this. And I understand that. I completely understand the kind of cynical approach when it comes to this because, you know, well, we'll get into it. But we're going to play actually a clip from Mickey Views because Mickey Views really does a beautiful job at kind of setting the table. And we're going to do like how we always do. We're going to play it. We'll pause it. We'll break it down and talk about it. Here we go.
We have a glimmer of hope for the parks that I want to touch on here, and that is the $60 billion that Iger has stated they want to invest in the parks over the next 10 years. Now, keep in mind, a lot of that is going to go to the cruise line, as well as things like more DVC properties. These are all things that are sure things, but still, $60 billion is a lot of money. Now, it's pretty much what Disney spent the past 10 years at the parks, and if you factor in inflation, it's actually, I think, less than Disney spent in CapEx over the past 10 years at the parks, but still, $60 billion, we should be seeing some part of that at Walt Disney World.
Okay, so here's the thing that... go ahead.
Sorry.
You first. You first.
Okay, almost right. And no offense to Braden, he's phenomenal. I love his channel. I love his work.
We are massive
content.
We are massive fans of Braden. We love Braden.
But I have to push back a little bit on this because he says that majority of this is going to go towards the Disney Cruise Line and DVC, which I'm for sure it will. However,
will the majority you think will go?
But majority. Some of it, like
some of it.
I'm saying he's saying majority.
Okay,
but that's where I'm kind of like I'm not in agreement with because we already have the wish, the treasure is already in motion that before the 60 billion came onto the table, and actually even the third Triton class ship, which actually at the time of this recording, DCL fan on Twitter announced that they actually started cutting the metal for the third ship today as we speak. They did the metal cutting ceremony. I didn't even know that was a thing in Germany. But yeah, so that's already taken progress. They're already in the midst of starting the structure of the third Triton class ship. They already purchased the ship from that's going to go into Singapore, the Disney Adventure. They just have to do the interior. So all of that, it was already set on the table before the 60 billion came into play.
It's money spent already. Exactly. And then on top of that, right, Jordan, you make a great point. And on top of that, okay, let's talk about the resorts. Well, you have Shanghai that just got I think it's like a $1 billion expansion. I know Disney doesn't pay for the whole thing. but sizable expansion with Zootopia, right? You have Hong Kong, another sizable expansion with Frozen, okay? So those two resorts don't really need anything immediately, right? Like these park investments, especially like big expansions like that, will basically carry those resorts into the next couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years, right? Where they don't really need anything. So that those I would say the Asian parks, Shanghai and Hong Kong, are pretty much off the table for the first 5 years. You know, so you have to factor all that in. Another thing that I think that a lot of fans are missing, and I see this repeated a lot, and he kind of talks about it here, and I've seen it repeated on other YouTube channels where, you know, they take the 60 billion and they spread it out over 10 years as if it's equally allocated. It's not going to be like that. And they even admit that in this quarterly earnings call. It's not going to be equally allocated. There's going to be a big lump sum or a big chunk of it at the end. And that matters. It's like, okay, for example, and I've used this analogy before. If I have $1,000, right? And I'm going to use it at the strip club, okay? If I use $1,000 on one day at the strip club, that's a different equation than if I take $1,000 for 4 days that week at the strip club, or all 7 days at the week that week at the strip club, right? So it's the same amount of money, but it depends on how you allocate it over a certain amount of time as to what you get out of that money. So yes, it's 60 billion, and yes, it's over 10 years. But if you don't invest that money like each year with the same amount, and let's say you kind of like dump a bunch of it in the last 2 or 3 years, or you dump more of it into this resort or more into that resort, that's a different equation. So, and that's how Disney usually operates. They don't usually operate with this like even Steven kind of thing that people are talking about. It usually is sort of like more selective, and it's not every year. So, yeah, I agree. I push back on that too. You know, I don't know. We'll see. Here we go.
Right? New lands, new rides, all sorts of cool new stuff. And during the interviews today and the earnings call itself, Iger can't stop going on and on about how he wants to invest in the parks, how he now wants to invest in success, which is what we've been saying that Disney should do for ages. You know, Disney has this corporate philosophy. This has been the case throughout Iger's term since he first became CEO. They constantly invest money in their underperforming assets, their failing assets.
Okay, that's a good thing. And I got to push back on Braden. Again, we love Braden. Okay, why would you? Okay, when you have all your different divisions, right? If a division is performing well for you, there's less of a need to invest right away in that division. You're going to invest your money in the divisions that need your help. I mean, that just makes that's just common sense. It's like you have two kids at home. One's an A student and one is a C+ student. And you get the tutor for the A+ student. You're investing in your A+ student. Why would you do that? You got to invest in your C+ student to bring the C+ student up to par. I mean, am I crazy? What do you think, George?
No, you're absolutely right. It's you always want to give that extra TLC, that extra special attention to the one that is having lack thereof some sort of difficulties, you know, and it's, you know, that's what you want to invest in because that's the way that you can progress to make it better. Yeah, if something is working, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right.
Segments that aren't doing so good, instead of doubling down on the winners and letting the losing assets and divisions fall away and doubling down on what is working. Double down on the parks. Earnings after earnings.
Okay, so kind of going off of what we were just saying, if you let a division fall off, then essentially you're losing money.
Well, exactly. And Disney has, over the 100 years, and really ever since they built Disneyland and started the parks division, the secret to Disney's success is how all these divisions kind of play off of each other, right? That's the secret to the success. So I understand Braden's a park guy, and I see a lot of park people, well, you know, who cares about the studio? Let's just invest all the money on the parks because that's what I'm into. It's like, yeah, but Disney was built on this idea of like, okay, the studio creates the franchises, the studio creates the stories we love and the movies and the shows we love. And then you go to the theme parks and you buy the merch and you experience the attractions based on those characters that you love from the studio. It's a cycle, or as Chapek says, the flywheel. So this idea of like, well, just let the failing divisions die on the vine. That's not a good strategy, Braden. I'm sorry, with all due respect, the studio is vital. The Walt Disney Company, Roy O. Disney himself, the nephew, Roy Disney himself said the studio is the heartbeat of the Walt Disney Company, was, and will always be the heartbeat of the Walt Disney Company. He said that. You can see it on Waking Sleeping Beauty documentary. And he's right. It's the heartbeat of the whole thing. It's what pumps it. Everything that the parks do is based on what the studio is producing. If studio dies off, the parks have nothing to build.
And that's what made Disney so successful over all these years. It wasn't just with one division. They all coexist with one another. They all intertwined with one another. Right,
exactly. So you need to have healthy divisions all across the board. And look, one of these days, the park division is going to have to rely on the studio division. I mean, even recently that occurred with the pandemic. When we had the pandy and these parks were shut down, thank God we had streaming and we had the studio, because if we didn't, the parks would be in way worse shape than they are right now. And that's what happens. You have these other divisions to sort of lift and prop the other ones up when another one is kind of falling. And who knows, right now, maybe the parks will have to be the one to kind of help the studio a little bit or whatever. And it kind of goes back and forth. But to just be like, yeah, studio's failing, so haha, it's tough luck for them. Let's just invest more in the theme parks. I gotta say, that's not a good idea at all.
No,
in my opinion.
I agree.
We see streaming is a bad business. Streaming is accruing all this debt. Meanwhile, parks is printing money. So invest in your parks. It doesn't seem like that complicated, right? Well, Iger says that's exactly what they're going to do. He says that they are investing in the parks for the long term.
Another thing that I really want to say is that a lot of people are wondering, a lot of park fans are saying, well, look at the numbers, they invest so much more per year on the studio and the streaming compared to the parks. Here's the deal with that. When you have TV shows and movies, they have a very limited shelf life, right? So you produce a movie and it's only in theaters for a few months, and then it goes on to the streaming service, right? And maybe some physical media. Okay, so there's only a few months really where you can really capitalize on that movie. You have a TV show like Ahsoka or Loki. It's on the streamer for a few months, and that's really the window you have to really capitalize on that show. See, the content from the studio side has a very short shelf life, but theme park stuff, you can build, if you build, like we just talked about it, when you build Zootopia over in Shanghai, that's a property, that's a product that will last and bring people in for at least a few years once it's open. So it has a much longer time to kind of capitalize on that investment. A new land will bring in money for that park for a longer time than a new show would or a new movie would for a streamer or even in theaters. So that's why when you see these numbers and they're so lopsided, the studio gets so much and the parks don't get nearly as much. That's why. I mean, Cars Land is over a decade old. It's still bringing people into DCA. Still.
Radiator Springs, like the #1 attraction at DCA, still right now.
Exactly. So the shelf life is much longer. The studio stuff, it's very limited. It's a few months at best to really get in on that money. Once it's out of theaters and once it hits the streaming service, that's pretty much it. You know what I'm saying?
He's bullish on the parks. They keep saying that they're going to turbocharge the growth at the parks and all that sort of, all these like sayings. Despite all of that, we still have no news in terms of new lands, new rides, or new investments at the domestic parks.
Okay, now here is an interesting graphic, and I brought this up actually on Twitter today. A lot of people, fans, a lot of content creators are missing this. On the top, it says upcoming parks and experiences, openings, and events. Now look right below that line, because I see a lot of this on Twitter, and I see a lot of content creators even talking about this. They say, look at this list. It's nothing. It's so underwhelming. And I agree.
Yeah, they think that everything on this list current right now is for the $60 billion. They're like, okay,
Oh,
that's this, and then that's what's going to allocate for the 10 years.
well, yeah, they think this list is like the Ten Commandments. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
it's etched
Yeah.
in stone, and this is if it's not on the list, we're not getting it. I mean, I saw one person say, "Well, where's the Avengers e-ticket?" It's like that stuff. Like, here's the thing: if you read right below the headline, it says here reflects publicly announced planned openings and events as of November 8th, 2023. List is not exhaustive, subject to change. So this is the official stuff that they have openings for, a date of opening. So the Avengers e-ticket isn't on here because it doesn't have an opening date yet. And it says here, I mean, clearly the fact that they even put that on there under the headline is proof right there that they're planning on adding more. They're telling you right there that this is not exhaustive. And you know.
And I think fans also forget of how Disney works in the sense, especially in Imagineering, where they gave us the concept art. I'll give an example for New Fantasyland back in 2009 at the very first D23 Expo. They gave us the blueprints. They gave us everything. We had the French chateau of Cinderella. We had the little cottage in the forest for Aurora, what have you. We had Pixie Hollow for Tinkerbell and the other Pixie fairies. Well, guess what? In a click of a matter, Pixie Hollow became Storybook Circus. The chateau and the cottage became Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Like in a short period of time while they were under construction.
Right.
While everything, so it's fans have to remember, if you actually go back and look at these instances in time with Disney can change anything with the top of a hat right then and there. Anything that they give us is obviously it's not going to be the final product. So they should take that with this graph the same way. They're just showing us currently, as you had mentioned, OG, what is already dated for a slate opening.
That's it. These are what we have here is just stuff that has an opening date. So, but this doesn't mean, and it says it right there, that doesn't mean this is the only stuff coming in the next couple of years. They admit to you on the fucking thing. They're telling you it's not the complete list. They're telling it to right there.
And remember, any project along those lines will take probably around 4 years or more to build from the time they announce it to the time that is actually completed. So even if we got something concrete for the Animal Kingdom and the Magic Kingdom, those land expansions, if we heard about those today and they said we're going to start work on it, from the time that they announce it, we'd likely be waiting around 4 to 5 years to actually get and be able to enjoy those investments at the parks. So the longer Iger keeps talking and the longer we continue to hear nothing, it means it's just that much longer till we get to experience anything new out of Imagineering beyond the retheme of Splash Mountain. And we have some sources in Imagineering. So if anything crazy was happening behind the scenes, we'd hear something about it. The Imagineers aren't going to give us the whole 411, but they'll definitely say, hey, there's some big stuff going on. So what I have to say to Iger is put your money where your mouth is. Announce new projects concretely for the parks. No more of this we have ideas nonsense. It's so clear the parks don't have money for new projects. That's why everything remains in its idea stage. We just had that D23 event where they weren't able to announce anything. It was all, we're thinking about doing this, we're considering doing that. And meanwhile, Walt Disney World President Jeff Volley keeps cutting the budgets and taking stuff out of the parks that we've enjoyed for the longest time.
So
okay, so a couple things. Again, Braden, great guy, love him, love his channel, love his content. But okay, so what he had just described about it taking maybe 4 to 5 years to go literally from concept to concrete to actually opening up the project, which is correct.
Right, yeah.
But
absolutely.
that's why Disney even admitted that. They said it is going to be the back end of the 10 years where they'll start to see a profit in revenue when these things are actually opened. So we'll get the announcements in the front part of the 10 years.
Right.
But then by the time it's actually completed, we'll be able to actually experience it and enjoy it at the back end. So technically that is correct. Second of all, no offense to Braden and his channel and his sources, but not every time whoever his sources is in WDI, and I know he said they can't tell us everything, but they could at least say, stuff is going on. If the higher end has told WDI to not say a word, their jobs are on the line. So whether or not that you have a YouTube channel or a vlogging profile or some sort of platform that these people to say, you know what, something's on the horizon, they may have been told by a higher power to not say a peep. And if that is told by them, then guess what? They're going to abide by it.
Oh,
so just because his sources aren't saying anything, that doesn't necessarily mean that nothing is going on in WDI right now.
Right. And fans also have to realize this. When they say that it's going to ramp up towards the end, right? Like, it's going to be like turbocharged by the end. Okay. Another thing that people have to realize here is when you're talking about $60 billion, okay, the average attraction, for example, Expedition Everest, it was $100 million to build that in like 2006, I think it was. Mm-hmm. It was like $100 million. With inflation, it'd be about $150 million now. That's not when you're talking about $60 billion, $150 million is not a big deal. Cosmic Rewind, which is Disney's most expensive coaster they built to date, was $500 million. Now, it was $500 million. A lot of that is because they had to pay all the celebrities in that, which comes at a high price tag. Even $500 million, though, it's not, when you're talking $60 billion, not a high price tag. So when fandom, when you hear Disney go, well, you know what, the front end will be kind of a gradual, and then towards the end we'll really supercharge it or turbocharge it. That doesn't mean the front end is going to get nothing. That doesn't mean the front end is going to get a bunch of shit. The Avengers E-ticket is probably, look, ballpark for something like that, probably $200 million, maybe. Okay. That's not a huge deal when you're talking about $60 billion over 10 years. So I could see an Avengers E-ticket opening within the next 5 years or something. Maybe they will announce that pretty soon and we get the ball rolling on that. That's not a major investment in the overall scheme of things for Disney. When they say the supercharge or the turbocharge at the end of the decade, I think they're referring to the big stuff, like the $1 billion expansions, maybe stuff that they want to do with Disneyland Forward and things like that. That's what they're talking about, maybe toward the end. The front of the decade, though, we might get little dark rides and cool little additions, maybe even an e-ticket here and there. Those things are not billions of dollars. Those are pretty small investments when in the overall scheme of what we're looking at here, So I think people think when they see that, oh, well, it's kind of a gradual thing from the beginning. They're thinking, oh, we're just going to get a bunch of Moana Journey of Waters. Not necessarily, though,
And honestly, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it, that Disney is going to set themselves up to have these massive announcements to the fans that we've been anticipating. If they were to announce everything right now just with the quarterly earnings, just by slapping it on a billboard or a chart or what have you, okay, that's fine. But they are ramping up for the next expo, which is in August. That is less than a year away. Tickets for the expo or the D23 event, I guess they're not calling it the expo anymore. But anyway, that tickets are going on sale for this event in spring. The event is in August. That's less than a year away. And I'm going to keep telling you, fans, they're changing it up. They're going to hold the smaller presentations in the Anaheim Convention Center. The bigger presentations that consists of Disney Animation, the live action panel, and Parks and Resorts is going to be held at the Honda Center, which can hold over, I believe it's like 25,000 people at once. They're not going to fill 25,000 seats just for a what if.
Well, no, they can't. I mean, they would, and oh God, that would be, I mean, if they do that again with the what if crap, I mean, I'm telling you, fans are going to give up on these expos. They can't, that would be 30 year in a row they did that. Now, I will agree with him on this, where I think that on one thing, I think that he's right where we need some concrete stuff, like announcements.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I'm completely right there with him on that. It's these what ifs and maybes and shoulda, coulda, wouldas can't. They skated by it twice. Third time is not going to be the charm. I'm going to tell you if they keep doing that.
You got it. Yeah, I agree with him on that. Like, and I think it's Daddy Josh. I really, really do. It's ever since this guy kind of took over. People were blaming it on Chapek. I really don't think it was Chapek. I'm telling you, when Chapek ran the fucking parks, when he announced something, it happened. Now there were a few things that didn't happen, but that was because I think of the pandemic and things like that.
Exactly.
But for the most part, when he announced Avengers Campus, we fucking got it. When he announced the Skyliner, we fucking got it. Like when he was announcing stuff and they were greenlit and we got it. He announced that we were getting a Spider-Man thing at DCA. We got it. Like tomorrow though, it's all blue sky stuff. There's nothing of substance, very few things of actual substance, and I'm tired of it. I'm with him on that. I mean, I think they really need to just announce something. I don't even care about
what is Disney? What is Disney even paying tomorrow for? Like he's not doing anything. I have yet to see one thing come out from this guy since he became chairman of parks.
Very few little projects here and there, but he has not committed to anything of substance, like size, you know. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's like above him or what. I have a feeling it is him though. I really do, because it seems like Bob Iger, the top dog, the main guy, is like, yeah, we want to pour money into this division. So it feels like more like a Daddy Josh problem. And for some reason, he just can't pull the trigger. He just can't commit to anything. It's driving me nuts. That's driving me nuts. Like I don't even care. Like if they announce, let's say for example, they announce Pandora coming to Disneyland, and they're like, yeah, you know what though, we're not going to break ground for like a year, and it's not going to be open for like another 4 or 5. I'm fine with that. If you promise,
it's greenlit. That's what it's like. Just give us the details,
and I'm good,
and we're good.
At least I know if I know it's coming, I can wait, dude. I don't need to open next year. Like people always talk about Universal. Oh man, they build these things in like 2 or 3 years. It's like, yeah, I don't really need that. I just tell me what we're gonna get, and whenever we get it, fine. But just come through eventually, though. You know, That's all I'm asking. You know, but yeah, this is what if stuff. I'm telling you, it needs to stop. Like Daddy Josh needs to commit to some shit and actually say this is greenlit. We're moving forward, and it's getting crazy. It's absolutely getting crazy with that.
Think about it. This time a decade ago for the holidays at Walt Disney World, we had the Osborne lights and we had the Dream lights on Cinderella Castle. Now we have neither. The lights on the castle, which need to be fireproofed annually, cost around $3 million to do. That's the quote that I heard back in 2019 when they were put on the chopping block. But Jeff Volley seems to think that projections are sufficient and that not putting the lights up is a great way to make extra money by cutting stuff out of the budget, reducing the budgets at the parks.
Okay, here's my thoughts on this. And this actually might be a really controversial opinion. I don't really know where you stand on this either, though, George. I actually think the projections are both, well, more cost effective, obviously, and actually just better in terms of show. And why I think that is because we get the lights out here in California. We get with the lights strung up on the castle and everything. And during the day, for the majority of the Disneyland day, when you walk near that castle, it's an eyesore. Those lights all strung up with the plastic stuff, like, you know, wrapped around them like icicles. It's a big eyesore. It looks pretty cheap. Now, look, it looks gorgeous.
Not to mention the removing of them each time.
Right.
You know, it does damage to the castle. They have to repaint, refixture, you know, so that costs money.
Exactly. And then we have issues with damage and stuff. Sometimes they don't fix it. We've had that in the past. Look, I mean, honestly, the projections, you don't have that problem during the day. You have full creative freedom to do whatever you want on that castle. You can make the castle turn into anything you want it to turn into. So even creatively, you're giving your creatives more freedom to do what they want to do with it. I think it's the future. I think it's a smart move, these projections. I think it actually, in a lot of ways, even looks better. Just my opinion. I think the lights are pretty, but it's kind of an outdated thing at this point. The projections, there's way more flexibility, even with creatively, you know, and you don't have that eyesore during the day. But what are your thoughts on that, George?
Yeah, here's my thing. I'm completely 100% agree with you. I think it leaves openings for creatives to basically do whatever they want. They could tweak and change anything last minute. They could add stuff, whatever. I think it's better for the show. My only discrepancy is that if they're going to do that, I kind of hope that they don't slack off on the overall aesthetics of that. Like to say, okay, this is much easier than just stringing up lights. Let's just throw this on regardless of how it looks. If you're still going to put something on the castle, make it look great. So as in time, I hope that the creatives keep that in mind to still put forth an effort to make things still look good. That's my only thing.
What do you
And
mean
then,
by like you mean like the projections, like
the projections?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so like for instance, like the Frozen one that they have, I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more, because you kind of have to look for the snowflakes of how it kind of resembles. Like, I would have loved something for it to look a little bit more festive, but again, that's just me, so I hope that they don't get lazy at that. Now,
Oh, I agree with that.
as far as everything else, they got the wreaths up, they got the garland up, so they still decorate around the park, but I think it's a smart move to utilize the projection mapping for the castles, because the castle is what you focus on the most, and it's the most that it takes a beating, so it's like, why would you say it was 3 million? What did Braden say, $3 million?
3 million to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think honestly, now if they were just taking it out and doing nothing with it, then I would have a problem.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think the projections provide the entertainment department to do a lot of creative, fun stuff with it. I think you get more flexibility out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in all honesty, it's more impressive than just a bunch of Christmas lights strung up over the castle. And like you said, you don't have the issue and the risk of damaging the castle, because Disney doesn't have a great track record with that. We had our castle damaged. We had dented rooftops for years because of the removal of a lot of these holiday overlays. So when you have the projection stuff, you can basically paint the castle every night, and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So I think it makes sense all around, personally. But everyone's got like a different taste, and Braden prefers the lights, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But
very interesting, a friend sent me this from Instagram. Usually it's very positive and pixie dust on Disney Instagram. All Disney's holiday.
I will say this though, I'm sure people love the dream lights. I'm not diminishing that, but when my antenna go up a little bit when I see a bunch of different people posting the exact same sentence. If you look back, let me show you. Look at this.
Usually it's very positive and pixie.
It's like the same exact, bring back the dream light. Like, they're all saying the same thing. It's like
dust on Disney Instagram.
Like, is it bots? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It might not be, but I just find that a little weird. In my opinion, I find it a little weird.
All Disney's holiday posts, they are being flooded with comments from fans saying, where are the castle lights? These projections are lame. It seems that Disney was able to trick people into thinking the reason they didn't do the lights in prior years had something to do with the 2020 lockdowns.
Recordings just got back.
There we go.
Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that.
That is not why. Back in 2019, we were hearing, and I reported that was going to be the last year of the dream lights, and that Walt Disney World's leadership did not want to do those anymore. They are an expense that they thought that they could cut out, and once they did cut it out, they didn't see some meaningful change in guest feedback. So if you get one of
So that's the thing. Like, well, I mean, hey, if they're not getting a bunch of pushback on it, then I guess it wasn't as popular as you think it was.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. People complain about the people mover and stuff, and I want our people mover back. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, the reality of the situation is, it wasn't really right before they closed it. It wasn't that popular. That's why they closed it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there wasn't a big pushback on this, probably because a lot of normies probably didn't care. I mean, that's the reality. As beautiful as it was, you know what I'm saying?
And they saved $3 million. They could be put towards something else.
Right.
Disney has to find ways. And what people also have to understand is, when 2020 rolled around and the world basically changed and everything was at a standstill, even for a brief, short period of time before everything started opening back up, all these companies, including Disney, took a major hit. And for us, we can say, oh yeah, with us, we lost out on several $1,000s in here. So these companies didn't lose millions, they lost out on billions. That's a lot of money. And you have to think, to have to rebuild back up, you have to have cost-cutting measures, and sometimes it's something that you don't like. Sometimes it may not be to your, to your appeal of what you want. But you know what? In order to save the company, you have to do what you have to do.
You have to do what you have to do. I see a lot of talk about how Disney's budgets are blown, like they're way too high, and then they cut, and then people bitch about them cutting it. It's like, what do you want? Like you complain when the budgets are high and they're wasting money or whatever, and then you complain when we cut them. It's like you can't win. It's
those Disney surveys, anytime they let you write in one of those fields, say, bring back the dream lights, because otherwise Disney's going to say, we saw no difference in the guest feedback. So I guess it was good that we cut that out. So all this is to say, while we're getting nickel and dime to death at the parks, they can't even deliver the same experience that they were able to just a few years ago. Yet at the same time, to the investors, Iger says everything's great. They're investing $60 billion at the park. No, you're not. Even the CFO admitted during the call that their stated investment in the parks over the next 10 years, which is subject to change at any time, it won't materialize in any tangible returns till the latter half of that.
Any tangible returns, which is what you're talking about, George. It takes years to build this shit. So the returns, which is what the investors care about, is the open when the product actually opens and they're making the money.
Right. See,
so that's at the end of the 10 years. Of course it is.
That's any given thing. See, that's where it's a common misconception that everyone is thinking that the 60 billion is going to be spent at the back end of the 10-year, and then we're not going to see anything till after beyond the 10 years. The money is going to be fed out throughout the 10-year span, but it's going to take time. So the investment and the revenue will not come in until the back end of the 10-year. Because that's how long it's going to take to actually build these things.
Right. We're not building like a steel coaster over grass like they're doing over there at Universal, you know? I mean, we actually theme our stuff over here. I'm just kidding, Universal fans. I'm just kidding. Universal does great stuff. But hey, Starfall, coaster, racer, whatever it is lackluster. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
10-year window that they are talking about. Not to mention, now is the worst time to be borrowing money. The rates are insane. And when the rates were basically zero and borrowing money was practically free back in 2020, Comcast funded an entire new park at those ultra low rates, which they locked in.
But here's the thing.
Now he's saying don't take any money.
I was thinking the same thing. But here's the thing, though. He's kind of commending Comcast where the rates were low in 2020. Yeah, but they also ate shit. Like Comcast overpaid on a lot of stuff, though. We had the supply chain shortages and all that other stuff going on at that same time when they were building this park, which inflated the cost of Epic Universe, which is why I'm hearing there have been cuts to this park.
It still broke even no matter what. Even though that it may have been a smaller price tag in the very beginning, they still would have had to pay more in the longevity because of all those interest rates.
The cost of steel skyrocketed during all this, with the supply chain shortages and all that. And then you're factoring in, all kinds of other stuff too. That, trust me, I mean, yes, some of it was great for them, and some of it didn't work out either. It was kind of a mixed bag.
While Disney sat on their hands and cut back on capital investment, as simple as just finishing building Tron and Guardians, which ended up taking ages to complete as a result. Now, when interest rates are at decade highs, Disney comes out and says, hey, we want to invest $60 billion. It's just bad timing, no pragmatism.
So don't do it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The whole entire video, Braden, I love you, man, but you've been bitching up a storm about saying we need to invest in the parks, but now he's saying it's the worst time to do it. So do it or not do it. I don't get it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand, brother. I don't get it.
And fundamentally, it's all talk. Where's the money, Iger? Where's the money, Josh D'Amaro? Give us a project. Actually announce something for the parks. I want to see a post on the Disney Parks blog that says, we are doing X. No more I.
Yeah.
I will agree. Yes, I agree with him on that. Honestly, even if they were to just take one project, they don't have to give a whole slate. They could save it for the D23. Just pick one and just post it. Just give us the fans as the hope, just to say, okay, you know what, the ball is rolling and something. Yeah, I completely agree with Brady.
He's right on this. We've been talking a lot on this channel, George, about Daddy Josh and the wishy-washiness of everything. The what if, the blue sky, imagine if we can do this, the possibilities, the throwing shit at the wall, see what sticks. Fans are tired of it. And Braden's right. Put something on the Disney Parks blog. Tell us you're building something. This whole thing with Disneyland Resort and this Avatar experience, let us know what it is. Is it a land? Give us some fucking vague ass concept art. Anything. Come on.
Anything. And honestly, Avatar would be the perfect thing to do because it was already pre-announced.
Right.
So show us early concept art, as you said. Is it a land? Is it a ride? Is it what is it? Like it's.
I know, and he's right on this. I'm telling you, Daddy Josh is not the right guy for this job. No. People will defend because he's super good looking. He is. He's pretty hot, man. Josh is hot, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah, he is. And I think honestly, that's why he knows he's a pretty face, and that's why he knows he can get away with this shit.
Exactly, and he's got the charisma and all that. And Josh, kudos to you for that. And that's great when you're at the bar trying to meet the ladies. But when you're running the park division, though, we need a little more than that, bro. A little more than that.
And honestly, really quick, I'm sorry. And to Josh tomorrow, he could be a great guy outside of, I'm for sure he has a great personality.
Yeah, no.
He's a people person. I'll give him that. Yeah, but as you said, as chairman of the parks, oh man, it falls short there.
Exactly. Like I agree with you. I think Josh seems like a great guy. I'd love to have a beer with the guy. I'd love to hang out. It's great, but we have to get some substance in these parks. We have to get some announcements. We're not saying this because we're trying to trash talk Daddy Josh or anything like that. We are rooting for the Disney company. We are rooting for the parks division. Josh, we want you to succeed because if you succeed, we succeed. Disney succeeds. Everyone, we're all on that same fucking flywheel. Okay. So it's like, we want you to succeed, but you have to, in order to succeed, you have to deliver. You have to give fans something. This maybe, what if, imagine the possibility stuff is not flying with fans. People are tired of that. Look, I criticize Universal all the time, but Universal builds things, they say, oh, this is happening, and then they build it. I mean, at least they do that, I mean, for all their flaws and for all my bias towards Disney and, whatever, Universal is better at this. They would never get up there and just say, hey, what if we do this? What if we do that? They just freaking do it. And that's the way to go. It really is.
It is. It is.
As no more we are considering, no more we're thinking of this. Keep being that way. And lots of fans, you know what they're doing in the meantime? They're thinking about the idea of, they're considering the idea of, hey, how about we go somewhere else? It's really that simple. Let me know what you guys think of.
That's funny.
I love Braden. I love him. He's so cool.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Braden. We love him. And we do these reaction videos or these analysis videos. Most of the time, we disagree with the videos that we respond to, and that's fine. We've done a bunch of these. We did, I think it was Park Place with the Disney adults. Correct. We've done one on PC Dev. We've done one on Fresh Baked. Mickey Views. It's all nothing but respect when we do these. We're just fans like you guys and gals, and we're just voicing our opinion and bouncing ideas and having a conversation. So Mickey Views is a phenomenal content creator. Mm-hmm. He's always been a gentleman to me. Like if I've ever talked to him like in the DMs or anything like that, he's always been really awesome. So definitely subscribe to him, support him. He works his butt off. This guy works his freaking ass off. So really show him a lot of love, and he comes in with really interesting content.
He does. He really does. I have the utmost respect for him. As I said, he's a great guy. I love his channel. I love his content. I love his style of how he does things. I've watched him from the very beginning and how he grew his channel to what it is today. Bravo and kudos to him.
Absolutely. So anything you want to add, George, before we close out this show on this turbocharged $60 billion?
Yeah, my final thoughts on it is I think a lot of fans are misreading the black and white on the paper, so to speak. I think that they're interpreting that we're not going to get anything until the back end of the 10-year, or we're not going to hear anything. That's not going to be the case. We are going to get announcements. We are going to get small things that are going to pop up. The bigger end is where all the revenue is going to come in, because that's when it's not going to get announced. That's when it's going to get completed, which means it's going to get announced much sooner.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah, and that one graph or that list of all the things for the next couple years, no one read that little disclaimer right underneath
Yeah.
the headline that this is not an exhaustive list, is subject to change. I mean, they're telling you right there they're going to add shit to this. I mean, they're telling you they're announcing it already. So let's
Yeah.
just have a little patience. I get it. We're all frustrated because, yeah, like, Josh Tomorrow, he doesn't really give us anything at these conventions, and we're frustrated, and that's understandable.
Exactly. And I can respect fans for that, because this is the second time we went from, just speaking with Animal Kingdom, we went from Moana and Zootopia to Encanto and Indiana Jones, and we still don't even know if that's going to be the final decision. It may be something else. It actually may be Up. And it
Who
may
knows?
be something else. We don't even know, like, as far as what they're going to decide with Wish. Wish might become essentially, maybe not for Animal Kingdom, but I mean, as far as like for Magic Kingdom goes, we got the meet and greet now, but
Yeah.
depending on how big this movie becomes, that might be, kind of the next thing. So,
And I think it has,
and that's what you were mentioning earlier, OG. That's why we need the studio. We
yes.
need the animation, because that is what fuels the tank for the IP for the parks.
It is. It absolutely is. And I get frustrated when I see park fans just saying, "Well, just who cares about the studio? Just invest in the parks." It's like, you guys, I get it. Like, you're in this whole fandom for the parks. I understand that. It's very like, parks, 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 parks. But the studio matters, and it matters a lot. And you can't just dismiss that and let it die and wither on the vine. Like, this studio feeds the entire company. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, you can't just like dismiss that, And like I said, Roy Disney said and watched Waking Sleeping Beauty. He says it. This studio is the heartbeat of the entire company, and it will always be the heartbeat of the entire company. And it is. It absolutely is. This is a studio first. I know park fans are not gonna like to hear this. It's a studio first. Disney is not a theme park. Disney is not Cedar Fair, is what I'm trying to say. They're not Six Flags, where it's like all they do is make rides. It's a studio that happens to have theme parks, is basically what this is. And we need the studio running on all cylinders. And if it doesn't, the parks are going to suffer. Everything needs to work. And that's been the secret of Disney's success for all these years, is that all these things work together.
That's the magic. That's the magic that no other company can hold over Disney. Is they have this well-oiled machine where it's not just parks, it's not just a studio, it's a nice blend where you need one for the other. Right. And that's where, in a sense, and I know I'm going way off topic, but that's the issue what's going on with WB right now. Why their numbers are falling, that they're a studio, but they have nothing else as a protective safety net. It's like if it's like a one and done. If it doesn't hit the bullseye, they're going to hurt. And that's what Disney doesn't want to get themselves into.
Disney has a very diversified portfolio. So when the studio side's slumping, then the theme parks are giving them a little bolster to kind of keep things cool. When the theme parks were closed during the pandy, they had the studio and the streaming stuff kind of keeping things afloat while the parks were shut down. These things work together. They help each other out in times of need, basically. That's why when people say, "Oh, well, all you got to do is just spin the parks off into its own company." Yeah, that's really a great idea until we have another pandemic. And then what? Mm-hmm. This company with only theme parks that they can't operate, what happens to that then? Because now they're not going to have the studio to prop them up.
Correct. Yeah, we can never let a hostile takeover even come attempt to again with the Walt Disney Company, like it almost did back in the day. Because when you start dividing the sections up of the company, it's not going to better in the long run.
No, well, people think that, like, well, it works for Oriental Land Company. It's like, dude, that's a unicorn. Are you kidding me? That's a freaking unicorn. Look at what happened with Paris when Disney didn't own the full thing. It was a mess for years.
Yep.
It was a mess for years. It's better now under full ownership of Disney than it has been in the longest time. OLC is an absolute unicorn. You're not going to find that anywhere. You're not going to find that anywhere else. Okay. Yeah. For people to think that this outside company is going to swoop in and take care of Disney's parks, and it's going to be just a great experience. Disney tried that. Disney sold off the Disney stores to Children's Place. I don't know if people remember that. They sold the Disney stores to Children's Place, and Children's Place ran those stores, and Disney basically charged them a licensing fee, and and they ended up buying it back from them because they were doing such a crap job. And I could see that happening if they did that to the parks. It's not worth it, y'all.
It would cost Disney more money.
Exactly, or God knows what else. It could be even worse than just costing money. You don't know what would happen to that.
Yeah,
it would just create a total mess. I mean, oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, what can you do? But George, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. The Italiano. You let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. And the Italiano, forget about it. But anyways, do not forget about that you could also find me on social media on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yeah, and so we have some great stuff coming up for everybody on Friday. Actually, tomorrow, right? Or well, actually, this will be released tomorrow. So tonight,
yes,
we are getting we're doing a live show with the Bad Thoughts podcast. You know, Candid and Tones, who we love. They are family here on OG55, and Slimer. He'll be joining us too. So kind of a stacked live show tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We were actually on the Bad Thoughts podcast. We recorded with them like a few days ago. Great conversation. That will be up, I believe, this next week or so. We get into all kinds of stuff, like why I can't stand Parmesan cheese. It smells like ass. I just hate it. And great stuff, guys. Great stuff. You have to watch it. You just have to watch it. It's fantastic. So this upcoming week, I believe that's when Tones was saying, right? That's when it'll be released.
Yes.
So we'll see. All right, everybody. Well, have a great day. And as always, have a magical day, everybody. Yes. Have a magical day. Hopefully it smells better than Parmesan cheese.